goop coming out of people. And speaking of goop, we need to talk about Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok. Now, I have been a big Bill Skarsgård fan for a while. I like a lot of the Skarsgårds. You know, Stellan Skarsgård and his wife, they've made a lot of children. Stellan Skarsgård is one of the most fertile men on the planet, him and his wife. And I think they've had like 17 or at least 24 kids. And we've seen a lot of them. The very, very talented Alexander Skarsgård, funny enough, also has worked with Robert Eggers in The Northman. But Bill, I like Bill. But he's like the Skarsgård they took out of the vat a little too early. You know, but I think that served him well. You know, his weird googly eyes and how he's seemingly like 7 feet tall. He's very gangly. That has suited him well in terms of his performances over the last few years, especially when it comes to a lot of the monstrous creatures and characters that he's played. Listen, Bill Skarsgård is great. Whether you need him to play a evil cosmic sewer clown or an undead vampire lord, he's your guy. He's gonna deliver for you, and he delivers as Count Orlok in this movie, basically Dracula. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everyone. I know I've been gone for a little while, just been spending a time with family, enjoying the festivities and everything, but I'm still working on a few things behind the scenes, and I'm still watching some great content. I'm very happy to be doing my review for Nosferatu, Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, a film that I've been eagerly anticipating as soon as it was announced back in the day. You know, Robert Eggers, he's been working on this movie, I think, like since 2015. It's supposed to be a second project after The Witch, but he had to delay it for a variety of reasons. But now here we are. Now, to start off, you know, I enjoy a really good vampire film, you know, a horror subgenre that has always been consistently popular for decades, you know, and I'm a fan of numerous vampire movies, you know, whether it be classic Universal or Hammer horror film incarnations, you know, the Bela Lugosi's to the Christopher Lees, if you will, to even like more experimental and genre-bending fare, you know, movies like The Lost Boys, Blade, or my personal favorite vampire film, Near Dark, just an excellent neo-noir western gothic vampire flick. It's so good. Highly recommend. Directed by Catherine Bigelow.
It's finger licking good.
And you know, vampires are just popular and very malleable, you know, for a reason. They remain scary and incredibly interesting. So it just makes sense that, you know, one of my most anticipated movies of this year was Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, which is a remake, of course, of the classic and seminal 1920s German expressionist film of the same name, a movie that has been incredibly influential, you know, not only within the horror genre, but just multiple other genres as well, cinema in general, a film that has an infamous and well-regarded reputation. Of course, it was an unsanctioned adaptation of Bram Stoker's, you know, Dracula. It was unsanctioned, and the Stoker's estate, you know, demanded that the film be destroyed and that all copies be destroyed. And, you know, at the time it seemed like they were, but obviously not. You know, some copies of the film had survived, and, you know, it's widely available to watch today, which is great. And, you know, along with that legacy, I'm just also a huge fan of Robert Eggers and his work. I've enjoyed all of his movies, from The Witch to The Lighthouse, which is my personal favorite, you know, to The Northman. You know, Eggers and his collaborators, his people, have released some wonderfully dark and grotesquely beautiful cinematic experiences for the last decade. You know, he seemingly has the exact right sensibilities to direct and write a remake of Nosferatu, his own interpretation of that material. You know, and it's a project that he's dreamt of making since he was a kid, since he was a teenager. So, you know, has Eggers delivered? You know, has he made not just one of the best horror films of the year, but also just one of the best movies of the year? Well, short answer, I'm very happy to say that the answer to both questions is a resounding yes. He absolutely has. But, you know, I want to go into more detail in just a bit. But obviously, before doing so, I do want to give you guys a bit of a synopsis for those unfamiliar with the material. You know, the film mostly takes place in Germany in the late 1830s and follows a cast of characters that have horrific interactions with Count Orlok. We followed this real estate agent played by Nicholas Hoult, who travels from Germany to Transylvania to meet with Orlok for an estate, for a mansion that Orlok wants. And while the real estate agent is away, we're introduced to his wife, played by Lily Rose Depp, and she's having these horrifying and sexual visions of Orlok and also his evil power. And Orlok wants her and pretty much wants to murder and consume everything that he comes in contact with. He wants to murder and consume every living soul he comes across in this film. So I really enjoyed this movie for the same reasons why I've enjoyed Eggers' other films. The man and his team just do a great job of immersing you in a dark and miserable world that at times can feel very fantastical and obviously very horrifying. Just through his incredible cinematography, the production design, the practical effects, the lighting, the music. It's great, but it's all complemented by these, as they often are in his movies, it's all complemented by these passionate performances that can be like very intimate and very quiet for one scene, but then become incredibly broad and loud in the best possible way in a few scenes later, and I want to start with the performances before getting into some of the film's aesthetics, which I think are incredible, absolutely amazing. Lily Rose Depp plays Ellen Hutter, who is the wife of Nicholas Holt's real estate agent. More on him in just a bit. Now, I'll admit, I have not been the biggest fan of Lily Rose Depp in what I've seen her, although I think what she made her cinematic debut in some Kevin Smith movies, Tusk and Yoga Hosers, not great. And, she's also recently coming off of the Idol, a pretty reviled show. And so everything that was, being announced in regards to this film being directed by Robert Eggers, written by him, of course, some of the other castings that they were making made me very excited. Hers was the one like, I don't know, I'm not sure about this. I don't know if she can pull this off. I am very happy to say that I was 100% wrong about her. She delivers a fantastic performance. Not only, is it the best of that I've seen of her, but I think it's one of the best performances of the year. And she, I guess, as I said, she plays the wife of real estate agent Hutter, and throughout her life. The film really immediately starts with her being plagued by these horrifying visions, and she's just been in a way just sexually pleased by them. She's lusting after them, and through her nature, through her desires, her lustful desires, she has somehow come into contact with Orlok, and he's been teasing her for years. And these visions that she experiences, these episodes that she experiences, she's doing some absolutely fantastic physical acting. There are several scenes, one scene in particular where she is gyrating and thrusting and crawling on the ground. It's like she is a woman possessed, right? It's like if Pazuzu said, Orlok, I'll take over for a little bit, and possessed her. And she just does such a fantastic job as this character. It's one of my favorite performances of the year. And I liked it that, again, she has these really passionate, intimate scenes with the rest of the cast in this movie, but then she just gets to let loose and be very broad and very loud and spittle and snot everywhere. And it's a great performance. And one of my favorites, it's up there, for me personally, with Demi Moore in The Substance, another film that I absolutely adored and loved. But yeah, I was so impressed with her character and what Lily Rose Depp did. I'm very happy to eat a big old slice of humble pie. Very happy to eat a mound of crow in regards to her, because she does a wonderful job. And Nicholas Hoult, he plays Thomas Hutter, the real estate agent. And Nicholas Hoult, he's just one of my favorite actors, working today. Even if the thing that he's in isn't all right, it's mediocre, it's not that great, he's usually pretty good in it. And just these last few years, whether it be things like, Mad Max Fury Road or The Favorite or The Menu, he's just delivered these really interesting performances. Like, he's always a different person every movie. He's like a chameleon in that way, and I like it. And here, he's this very pure, very kind, sincere man. He's trying to be the best husband that he can be for, Lily Rose Depp, and he's just got to go on this job, got to go to Transylvania, gonna, close this deal, make a lot of money, be able to get her what she wants, and set themselves up. They can start a family, except, the person that he has to meet is an undead vampire lord, who's just messes with him, just tortures him throughout this movie. And he sees other than Lily Rose Depp's character, he's one of the first ones that sees some fucked up shit in this movie, and it just messes with his mind. I mean, he goes through, psychological and emotional torture, turmoil. Physically, he gets really messed up in this film, and his interactions, Nicholas Hoult is great at just making these really panicked performances of his. I just love the way how he just constantly looks like he's about to just burst out crying. Just, oh please, oh God! And he's not a coward or anything like that, because I don't care who you are, or, where you came from, you'd be terrified in any of these situations, because so much of what these characters are going through is psychological. It's just this evil that is warping reality around them, and I feel like Nicholas Hoult's performance, it captures that wonderfully. He does such a great job. And then, another actor who, I've criticized recently, Aaron Taylor Johnson, who's coming hot off of Kraven the Hunter, where he played, Sergei Kravenov, Kraven the Hunter, and he wasn't very good in that. I'll admit, I'm very mixed on Aaron Taylor Johnson actors. Some things I think he's very good in, other things where I think he is wooden as hell. But, as is often the case, as I've said this before, you can be the most talented actor in the world, but if you get a shit script, shit direction, giving a shit performance. I think that's what's happened to him a number of times. But here, he's great. He plays Thomas Hutter's best friend, and Nicholas Hoult's character's best friend, Frederick Harding. He's like the shipping magnate. He owns all these boats and things, and he's taking care of Lily Rose Depp, and along with his wife and his two little girls, as Nicholas Hoult's, off in Transylvania. And he's very much a vampire skeptic. He doesn't believe in the magic and the occult and all the evil that, is seemingly consuming all of their lives right now. And he does a great job. He's a very funny character. You totally understand his perspective and where he's coming from. He's very, very grounded. He goes through some shit, is all I'll say, in this movie, and you really do feel sorry for him. And he gives a very strong supporting performance in this movie. Have no complaints about him. His wife in the film, Anna Harding, is played by Emma Corrin, who I know I've seen other things before. She's also really great. She plays Lily Rose Depp's characters like best friend and confidant. And she's also based on the Bram Stoker character of Lucy. So if you know what happens to Lucy, you know what happens to her. But she also does a great job. Much like her husband, she goes through some shit in this movie, and I really liked her performance in the film. Willem Dafoe is also one of the other people in this movie, and he plays Albin Eberhard Franz, pretty much the Bram Stoker character of Abraham Van Helsing. As you guys know, I am a huge Willem Dafoe fan. He's one of my favorite actors working right now, whether it be, in smaller kind of roles or performances and things like Nightmare Alley, or in huge superhero films like in Spider-Man. Misery, misery, misery. That's what you've chosen. I offer you friendship and you spit in my face. Love his Green Goblin. I mean, he's worked with Robert Eggers ever since The Lighthouse. Hark! Which is, one of my favorite supporting performances from him. My favorite performances from the 2010s, honestly. He's in that movie. He had a small role in Northman. He has a more substantial role here, and he's great. I remember I think it was when the movie was announced, or when they finally started releasing images, not even a trailer. And one of the images was just Willem Dafoe in this ancient mausoleum, this crypt, surrounded by rats and all these flames. And he's like, he's just laughing his ass off, here we go, perfect. And he is playing exactly that. He plays broad very well, and he gets very loud in this movie. But then they even have some more quieter scenes with him where he's still crazy. He's this professor that was thrown out of the Swiss university. He's a genius, but he became so obsessed with the occult and magic and monsters and things, and studying the vampires and Nosferatu. He's trying to figure this out. He's the one they eventually go to until it's like, hey, all these things, we exhausted, science and medicine. Now we got to take that step. We got to dip our toes into this crazy nonsense. And he's the guy that meets you there. He's like, ha, welcome. The water's warm. He's that guy. And he's wonderful. And even if he's having a smaller scene where he's just smoking his pipe filled with opium, or he's just, just screaming at you, he's great in this movie. Also, another actor I really like. You may not recognize the name, but you certainly have seen the face, and you will definitely recognize the voice. And that's Ralph Ineson. And he plays Dr. Severs in the movie, who eventually enlists Willem Dafoe's character. And he's the doctor that's pretty much like treating Lily Rose Depp for all of her various, visions and symptoms and things that she's been having. And again, he is great. And he has a relationship, obviously, with Eggers. He played the husband in The Witch a number of years ago. And he was great here. And again, like with that voice, you can give him any dialogue. He'll make it sound fantastic. But he does a really good job. He's this sensible character that is trying his best to help. And then when he's trying to make sense of all this and he can't, he's like, it has to be like this crazy occult thing. And he enlists the help of Willem Dafoe, and I really like him. It's always great seeing him pop up, whether it be in these smaller movies or Diablo 4 or video games, or here as a fellow vampire hunter. He's consistently great, and really liked his role in it. And then you have some other like smaller performances in the movie. Simon McBurney plays Herman, who is the boss of William Holt. I even forgot his name. William Holt. Nicholas Holt. And, he's very much the Renfield character from the Bram Stoker's, Dracula, from like various other adaptations. Kind of Dracula's familiar, if you will. He's the one that makes this contract, wants to bring, Dracula to Germany, and he wants power for himself. And he does some gross ass shit in this movie, and his performance again is very broad, but he does a really good job. You see him naked a lot, naked and covered in blood and eating animals and things, but he's committed to it. Just a lot of stuff coming out of people's mouths, a lot of goop coming out of people. And speaking of goop, we need to talk about Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok. Now, I have been a big Bill Skarsgård fan for a while. I like a lot of the Skarsgårds. Stellan Skarsgård and his wife, they've made a lot of children. Stellan Skarsgård is one of the most fertile men on the planet, him and his wife. And I think they've had like 17 or at least 24 kids. And we've seen a lot of them. The very, very talented Alexander Skarsgård, funny enough, also has worked with Robert Eggers in The Northman. But Bill, I like Bill. But he's like the Skarsgård they took out of the vat a little too early. But I think that served him well. His weird googly eyes and how he's seemingly like 7 feet tall. He's very gangly. That has suited him well in terms of his performances over the last few years, especially when it comes to a lot of the monstrous creatures and characters that he's played. Listen, Bill Skarsgård is great. Whether you need him to play a evil cosmic sewer clown or an undead vampire lord, he's your guy. He's gonna deliver for you, and he delivers as Count Orlok in this movie, basically Dracula. And his design is a little different from the Nosferatu that we have seen for well over a century now. I don't want to say too much. All I'll say is the makeup on him looks great. He's basically just a rotting corpse that's like falling apart. And his performance matches his physical attributes. Like, he has this wonderful accent where you can't even recognize his voice. He constantly is wheezing. He's struggling to breathe and get his words out. It's like his lungs, his own lungs are just rotting, inside of his body. And I love his accent in the film. And I just love his physical performance. I mean, when it comes to iconic vampire portrayals, Bill Skarsgård is going to be up there, I think, for a lot of people. He does such a great job. And yet, for whatever reason, despite being so gross, so wonderfully gross and grotesque and horrifying in the movie, the ladies are constantly lusting and thrusting for Count Orlok in this movie. I would describe his energy, his vibe, as Pete Davidson energy. Listen, Pete Davidson, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but he's not the most handsome man in the world. He's kind of ugly looking. But the ladies love him. The ladies love him. He just has that charisma. Apparently, he's just very funny, and he just must have a giant dick. And I think that's the case for Count Orlok. Count Orlok, he just must be really funny. He just must have a giant undead vampire dick the ladies just can't help themselves with. So, he's wonderful in the film. One of the big standouts in the movie. And outside the performances, I mean, as I said at the top, the technical aspects of the film are beautiful. They're great. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. Every shot looks like a painting. You know, Eggers and his cinematographer, who I think has worked with him since, I want to say, The Lighthouse, like, I mean, maybe even The Witch, but I definitely know The Lighthouse. You know, they do a perfect job of showcasing how horrible the conditions would be in 1830s Germany in the middle of the winter, in the middle of a plague, which they can also tie into Count Orlok's powers, which I think is really cool. But there's just so many shots in this movie, along with the terrific lighting and lack of lighting in some scenes, where it almost looks like it's black and white, which is clearly paying homage to the original 1920s film. And Eggers loves like black and white. I think he's even said he's wanted to make most of his movies in black and white. Obviously, he was able to do so with The Lighthouse. But here it was just like, God, there's just so many shots and just beautiful, horrifying imagery in this movie, and they do a great job. And you know, as I kind of was hinting at, obviously, of Skarsgård, like the makeup on Bill Skarsgård, the makeup on other people is great. You have there's certainly a little bit of CGI and digital effects in the movie, but there are so many practical effects in this film too. The majority, which I think is practical, and it all looks great. It all looks like really, it looks real. It looks gross. You can reach out and touch it and be like, oh, it's goop. And I loved it for that. I loved it. Like, I have no criticisms about the look of the movie. The score is also wonderfully done. Completely immerses you in this world. It's great. And the last thing I think I want to say is, and I want to emphasize this. This film is not an action movie. Okay, you know, this is very much a Gothic horror drama, where you're just seeing these people unravel mentally and then later on physically throughout the entire film, right? Not to say that you don't have some like great creepy moments or some terrifying moments or some moments of gore that's like really gross and it's like, ooh, it makes you wince. There's that, but this is not Blade. And it was funny just because, you know, the audiences I was with, which most of them liked it, but there were a few people that clearly were not vibing with this film. Matter of fact, like one guy stood up and said, "This movie is shit," and like left. And I was like, I didn't think it was shit at all. I think the movie actually is quite good, but this won't be to everyone's liking. You know, this is a drama horror thriller through and through, and the pacing, I think, is deliberate. You know, the movie wants you to get to know these people, these characters, and what they've gone through, and you see what they go through, so you empathize with them, you feel for them. And I think the movie accomplishes that very well. But yeah, if you're expecting, you know, Underworld, where all these characters are suddenly wearing skin-tight leather and they're fighting, you know, CGI vampires and werewolves and firing off guns, I'm sorry, this is not the movie for you. You know, this is something different. It's adhering more to the sensibilities of the original 20s film or of other classic, you know, vampire movies that we've seen. And I think it does it well. It's this film, Nosferatu, is an incredibly well-made Gothic horror movie that I think succeeds across the board. The pacing might not be for everybody, but I didn't mind sitting with this film or these characters or just looking at these incredible, just beautiful shots in this movie, the environments, and the fact that they were shooting on location. It just immerses you in it. And I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite movies of the year, one of my favorite movies of 2024. Maybe not my favorite film. I think I know what my favorite film is right now, but it is certainly in my top 10 list. But what about you guys? I'm very curious to hear your opinions on Nosferatu. You know, did you like it as much as I did? Were you more mixed on it, or did you not like it? Would you have preferred, you know, hot, skin-tight, leather and latex fighting CGI werewolves and vampires? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.